It's the week of Halloween, so be prepared for some spooky frights, but as usual, we have a wide range of titles from RPGs, roguelites, action games, and more, so let's begin with Dark Moon, a survival strategy game where you lead a crew on the lunar surface after a devastating solar storm knocks out all electronics on the moon, and solar radiation is fatal, so you have to be constantly moving to stay on the dark side of the moon, trying to make contact with Earth to get rescued. You command a mobile base called the Mechaplex, a giant all-purpose engineering vehicle with a spider design, using it to haul resources across the surface, construct facilities on board the mech, guide survivors, explore the darkened landscape while keeping morale up and systems ticking, making tough moral decisions along the way, looking awesome visually with a compelling setup. This title is not a release but a DLC where Halls of Torment, the Boglands, expands upon the tremendously popular Bullet Heaven roguelite, one which got its hooks deep in me in part due to the retro Diablo 1 looking art style, and allows you to explore a new stage in a murky swamp frontier where creeping roots, drowned spirits, and walking trees await. There will be two new heroes in the Crone and the Alchemist, using decay and potions respectively, along with new quests, abilities, gear, artifacts, and more, and looks to suck up hours of my life. This video is brought to you by Septurian Might, a 2D platforming science fantasy action RPG where you explore the alien world of Septura and unlock power by stealing the intellect of your enemies. You run, slash, and dodge in tight Souls-like combat, having to be precise with the timing as you exploit openings and get out of the way just in time to avoid the counter-attack. Grab abilities from defeated foes, stealing their intellect, memories, and power, building a toolbox of over 100 unique abilities to use, spend stolen intellect to upgrade 25 unique skills over 5 skill trees, upgrade your abilities, gadgets, and more as you explore the world. While a bit darker in concept, there are doses of humor and absurdity in the writing, with branching paths due to your actions leading to multiple endings as well. I like the hand-drawn art and animations as well, looking like an epic yet playful title, so if interested, you can wishlist the game on Steam. The Séance of Blake Manor is a first-person supernatural detective mystery set in 1897 Ireland, where you step into the role of private investigator Declan Ward after the sudden disappearance of a young woman who was a guest at the manor, just days before a grand seance was planned to occur, tearing the veil between worlds apart. You explore the sprawling Blake Manor Hotel and its hidden corridors, scour rooms for environmental clues, examine objects, interrogate a cast of enigmatic mystics, and track the schedules and secrets of each guest as time relentlessly ticks towards the night of the ritual. As you progress, you record your deductions in a journal, building connections between evidence and motive, where every action consumes precious time and it's a race against the clock to save the young woman, where being in the right place at the right moment matters. The setting is steeped in Irish myth and Victorian-era spiritualism, where the manor crackles with strange phenomena and the entire world feels alive with unease and tension. The tone is moody, atmospheric, and rich, but with an overhanging sense of dread, blending classic detective gameplay structure with creeping horror in a beautifully stylized graphic novel presentation. This comes to us from the developer of The Dark Side Detective, a spooky point-and-click adventure game series which is great, as well as publisher Raw Fury, who released Blueprints earlier this year, which has a similar vibe, so they know their spooky investigative games. Cats and Cups is a cozy simulation game where you take on the role of a barista in a coffee shop in the world of cats, serving a variety of drinks to feline customers in a warm, hand-drawn world. Grind beans, steam milk, make specialty recipes through unique minigames, and brew up treats that satisfy quirky customers with distinct tastes and personalities of their own. Unlock new drink recipes, decorate and expand your cafe's interior with charming furniture and accessories, meet more visiting cats, and deepen your relationships by learning their favorite orders and backstories as you continue to play. The setting presents a tranquil cafe atmosphere where coffee culture meets cuddly felines in a visually inviting experience, offering a relaxing loop of crafting, serving, and decorating that's ideal for fans of slow-paced job simulators. My newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. A Lovecraft-inspired survival horror first-person shooter is Beneath, where a routine oceanic diving expedition plunges into chaos and traps our protagonists beneath the waves in a nightmare of ancient evil, grotesque mutations, and creeping madness. Explore claustrophobic underwater zones, derelict rigs, and deep-sea wreckage, managing scarce ammo, limited oxygen, and your own mounting terror while confronting enemies ranging from human foes to inhuman monstrosities. This will have a story-driven single-player campaign lasting about 10 plus hours, during which you uncover a sinister conspiracy that threatens humanity itself, while in a race against time to search for a cure for your daughter. Combat is visceral and bloody as you take on these creatures using an arsenal of upgradable weapons, but ammo scarcity means that you need to be prudent with your shots. There's also a sanity mechanic where as you begin to lose your mind, you become vulnerable to visions and hallucinations, adding an extra layer of terror and challenge to the combat, with this spooky title being perfect for this time of year. Other games begin with ADRIFT, a beautiful sci-fi off-road driving adventure in which you take control of a rugged truck, navigate sweeping deserts, winding canyons, and shifting dunes on an urgent mission of delivering a mysterious energy core across a barren landscape before time runs out. Driving is physics-based and immersive, where drifting through the vaporware world is a new experience, precariously moving across cliffs while having to maintain stability under load, which requires both finesse and speed. I'm very curious about the structure of the game, where the developer mentions that the energy core deteriorates for every second it spends in the desert heat, so it's imperative that you get to your destination quickly. But what happens if you fail? Does your truck blow up and you have to start the game over? Is there replayability or procedural generation to keep this interesting? Are there checkpoints and save points? Who knows? But I guess we'll find out when it releases, where I always have room for a non-competitive driving game, so I'm keeping an eye on this. Another cozy title is Carefully Stamped, a cozy postcard-making sandbox creator where you become a boutique creator of handwritten mail using an array of stickers and stationery to craft these art pieces. Create custom postcards by selecting a blank card, then using stickers, doodles, washi tape, and stamps to make it your own, adding a personal handwritten note to match each order. Fulfill customer requests to keep them coming back as you collect unique stamp sets and decorate your workspace to make it even cozier. Unlock even more stickers and stamp designs as you go along, gaining access to premium card stocks and special tools, all while you experiment in that sandbox with no time pressure. The developers says that this is for stationery lovers, so if you ever fell down a rabbit hole buying or collecting any of these, then this will certainly be of interest. An interesting looking roguelite survival horror game is Cyber Rats, where you play as a rat trapped in a sinister AI-controlled test facility, running through deadly, procedurally generated mazes, surviving lethal traps and twisted experiments. You'll navigate through shifting labyrinths and avoid death by rotating blades or crushing hammers as you search for cheese and attempt to escape, while the AI relentlessly hunts you down, spawning and sending deadlier hazards your way. Over the different runs, you will unlock and get access to new rat variants such as zombie rats, cyborg rats, and even mutant rats, then upgrade and evolve them to survive, giving future rats a better chance at survival. It's kind of refreshing to see a game that looks different as compared to Isaac, Hades, or more recently, Vampire Survivors, so if you're in the mood for something different, do pick this up. I love monster taming in games, which is why Decktamer got my attention, a turn-based roguelite deck builder, yes, but where you have to tame your foes to make them part of your deck. You face wave after wave of creatures deep in the mysterious abyss, and with each turn, trigger the abilities of your creatures to defeat your opponent. Considering synergies and strategy, with the card designs and table layouts reminding me of Magic the Gathering. The key moment is deciding whether to kill an enemy or to tame it, which is a central mechanic since there is permadeath where you can permanently lose your creatures, experiments with mutagens to mutate your creatures, transferring abilities from one monster to another to create powerful combos. The deeper you descend into the abyss, the stranger the enemies become, having some fantastic and horrific designs that is almost horror game adjacent, and again should be a mechanically fresh take on the deck builder. The next bottom of screen idle game is Desktop Heroes, one which absolutely exploded up the charts in terms of Steam followers, although I cannot find any particular reason as to why, so hopefully it's not bots or something. Similar to other games in this space, it's an idle RPG designed to run unobtrusively at the bottom of your screen, letting you build a team of heroes to defeat monsters and collect loot in a fantasy world. Choose from wizard, warrior, hunter and assassin, watching them automatically progress through quests, battle waves of enemies, and gather resources while you work on email. Step in to manage gear upgrades, refine hero builds, or to take on boss challenges, offering a mix of passive and active gameplay as your hero gets progressively stronger and takes on more challenging missions. I do like the pixel art, especially the character sprites, more so than the backgrounds, also having considerations like protect mode so that the game doesn't appear even if you share your screen, as well as virtual mode where you can continue working without having to close the game and looks appealing in the same way that incremental games are. Get ready for a double dose of classic survival horror, first with Echoes of the Living, a game that looks to be taking inspiration from Resident Evil and other late 90s survival horror classics, utilizing fixed camera angles, deliberate tank control movement, limited resources, puzzling environments, and a haunting narrative. Set in a quiet European town in 1996, a thick fog has enveloped the streets, causing residents to fall ill and then to rise as savage horrors, turning the streets into a nightmare. Search dilapidated buildings and alleys for clues, ammo, and key items, deciding when to confront or run away from enemies as you move around solving puzzles to progress forward and uncover the truth behind the outbreak. There appears to be two main characters, a police officer named Laurel Reeves and Liam Oakwood, an ex-Special Forces member who wanted to start a new life in this sleepy town only to be confronted with this horror as the story unfolds through the eyes of both of these characters, offering different perspectives and narratives as to what is going on, looking like a faithful tribute and is perfect for the season. Another classic-looking survival horror title is Flesh Made Fear, also being inspired by the late 90s PSX era titles, throwing you into a nightmarish world of occult experiments and grotesque monsters. Play as an elite operative on a mission deep inside a remote town that has been turned into a festering laboratory by a deranged former CIA agent whose twisted experiments have unleashed monstrous creations. Navigate the entire town and the main mansion turned laboratory, battling enemies, managing limited inventory space, scarce ammo, and a limited number of saves using an in-game collectible, adding tension since you cannot just go in guns blazing. Solve puzzles that require both observation and logic, which is intertwined with the story, as you find out more about the main antagonist and his motives. Instead of purely having fixed camera angles, this does mix it up with some behind the back and dynamic camera sections, also having tank controls, but with the option for modern controls if you so choose. There are two playable characters, Natalie with less health and more inventory space, or Jack with the reverse, more health and less inventory space, each offering unique stats and storylines, so there will at least be two playthroughs of the game. Clone-based puzzle games are nothing new, but we have something interesting here in MotionRec, a self-styled recording-based puzzle platformer where you use the novel ability to record your movement, including walking, jumping, climbing, and more, then play it back in other areas to navigate tricky platforming sequences. You might record yourself ascending in an elevator, then replay that trajectory to reach a spot you couldn't jump up to, making you rethink movement in video games and looks fascinating as a result. I believe this is from a Japanese developer, and there have been interesting puzzle platformers coming out of there, such as Head. With this recording mechanic being relatively novel, so I'm interested to see where the puzzles go in this. From the developer of Node Farm comes Node Math, another factory builder game where you build a number combining system based on nodes and operators here. you start off with a basic node that generates values, then link nodes to mathematical operators such as addition, multiplication, and eventually exponentials to increase output and earn accumulating currency. Spend money to unlock new nodes, scale your factory, automate operations, and invest in infrastructure that boosts both your production and recursive combinations, where I've never seen it done quite like this before, being hardcore math stuff and removing all pretense of farming or resource production chains which we are more familiar with, where I suppose its closest comparison would be shapes.io, since that is about creating abstract shapes, making this stand out in the space. Orbyss is not a simple physics-based ball-rolling platformer, but a logic-based 3D puzzle game instead, in which you control a firefly of energy, switching between orbs and getting them into place so that you can solve the puzzle to progress to the next one, having surprisingly a larger story that involves a growing shadow which is threatening your world. You have to inhabit one orb, move it, then shift to another, effectively letting you be in multiple places at once, and has been described as playing co-op with yourself. Manipulate time, use flying drone helpers and sound-based cues to solve the puzzles, and will have full accessibility support if you're impaired in one way or another. I don't believe there's any insane timing elements to the puzzles, so it's not some kind of hardcore platforming challenge, but rather a puzzle game with ball physics with a cool look as well, and will be for puzzle game fans. I love my monster taming games, so when you tell me that Pipkin comes with an earthbound aesthetic, of course I'm in. Set in a spooky Halloween-tinged world, you capture adorable but eerie companions known as Pipkin, train them and explore colourful environments across the magical town of New Haven. Battle alongside your Pipkin using a turn-based system with over 250 unique moves and with 60 creatures to collect, each belonging to one of 4 classes and 15 elemental types, will have plenty of variety, with, I believe, an elemental strengths and weaknesses system, so nothing too crazy in how this is Pokemon-like, but I absolutely love the art in this game. So for a double whammy of awesome monster taming game and Halloweeny theme, this is the hidden gem of the week. I don't have any particular nostalgia for Simon the Sorcerer, which is why the announcements of Origins didn't excite me all that much, but I have heard of the name before, so if you love the series, I'm sure this will be of interest. This is a new prequel entry in the classic point-and-click adventure game series, bringing back the sarcastic wizard and revealing more secrets and stories about his past. The gameplay remains rooted in traditional point-and-click controls, so explore the richly detailed hand-drawn environments, click to interact with items, talk to quirky characters, combine objects to solve puzzles, while enjoying a narrative and writing full of humor, irreverence, and fantasy parodies. It is painstakingly animated with 15,000 hand-drawn frames of animation, as well as an aesthetic reminiscent of 90s animated movies, and looks pretty stunning, so if adventure games are your thing, definitely pick this up. I'm highlighting Skigill in part because I recognize the name of developer Acromy, who made the 1-bit Zelda-like Master Key, which is great, with this being a bullet heaven action roguelite, but with the twist being that the battlefield is actually an enormous skill tree, which looks like an interesting twist on the genre. Sure, you're doing Vampire Survivors stuff by blasting at hordes of enemies and picking up the equivalent of XP gems or gold, stopping to open chests, and to gain a bunch of power-ups, but of course your proximity to the node is important since that is where you can spend resources. Each node grants buffs to stats, unlocks weapons, or triggers powerful perks, so choosing your path through the tree becomes a strategic layer on top of the fast-paced combat. Different characters start at different parts of the same skill tree, Path of Exile style, so it's possible to cross over to another character's area and to mix and match abilities, with meta progression between runs with permanent upgrades. I love the 1-bit pixel art as well, as is signature of this developer, with the yellow really standing out, so try this for something a little different. Slot and Dungeons is a roguelite deck builder which cleverly mixes card-based mechanics with dungeon crawling and slot machine style randomness. The position of enemies and items on each floor of the dungeon is dependent on the slots, where you're collecting symbols to place into said slot machine, where both your deck composition and luck of the spin will affect what kind of hazards you face. These symbols might trigger spells, affect items, or place different kinds of enemies, with, I believe, spells and abilities activating automatically, so the strategy comes from your build. There will also be various characters, at least 3 of which will be in the early access launch version in Warrior, Mage, and Gambler, having great pixel art and an awesome overall presentation with numbers and symbols up the wazoo so you can min-max to your heart's content. Japanese developer Onion Games makes really weird titles, with Stray Children being their next game, a bittersweet fairy tale RPG set in a world where all the adults have turned into monsters and nowhere is safe outside the walls. Play as a young boy who, upon switching on an old console, gets transported to this very world, where he must survive, explore, and build relationships in this strange environment. In perhaps a commentary on life itself, the adults are known as the Ogres, monstrous creatures that are carrying the heavy load of their own inadequacies, self-doubt, and grievances, transforming them into something terrifying. Interestingly, gameplay looks very Undertale inspired, having turn-based RPG combat where you can attack, talk, or use items, and when enemies attack, things shift into real-time dodge-em-up action as you avoid the barrage of their bottled-up emotions. Using words to deal crushing blows is an interesting concept and feels quite meta in some ways, with a ton of variety in the various fights as well. This does remind me of another quirky Japanese RPG in Moon RPG, especially in terms of visual presentation, looking cool and quite strange, and is very indie games. One of the craziest looking games is The Horde Wants You Dead, which is surprisingly not a bullet heaven roguelite, but instead a 4-player co-op top-down shooter, but does seem to take inspiration with the choice of upgrades and permanent progression. Face relentless waves of enemies as you dash, roll, shoot, and grenade your way within arenas, taking down thousands of foes. There is ragdoll physics which adds to the combat, with of course copious amounts of blood and environmental carnage, despite having the relatively simple looking stickman, but zooming out, this looks quite impressive and could be fun with friends. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. Death by Scrolling comes to us from developer Ron Gilbert's studio, Terrible Toy Box, and while he's best known for the Monkey Island adventure games, this is a very different kind of title, being a vertical scrolling roguelite RPG where you sprint upwards through the depths of purgatory, fighting off bizarre underworld creatures, dodging the ever-looming Grim Reaper, racing against the rising edge of the screen that ends your run when it catches up, while you try to earn enough gold to pay the ferryman's toll. You pick one of several characters, each offering unique perks, and use their abilities to battle monsters, collect gold and gems, and activate power-ups, visit quirky vendors mid-run, and complete side quests, all in a frantic gameplay loop. The pixel art is on point, with tongue-in-cheek humor and the writing as well, so even while this is not their usual area of expertise, it is still worth picking up. One of the most anticipated titles this week is Outbreak Island, an open-world sandbox survival horror game where you arrive on a remote island to investigate a cryptic message from your missing father, only to discover that a strange mystical beam reactivates electronics and awakens monstrous creatures at night, and you have to survive against the horrors and to figure out what really happened here and what role your father played in it. During the day, you explore the island, gathering resources, crafting weapons, building vehicles, and upgrading your base infrastructure, which just so happens to be your father's old farm, and by night, you defend your shelter against hordes of monsters. However, that same beam of light, which activates the monsters, also restores old machinery, allowing you to access previously sealed bunkers, refuel at deserted stations, and much more, adding an interesting risk-reward dynamic, which forces you out into the dark. As you build and fortify your home, upgrade your arsenal, and expand your domain, your goal shifts from simple survival into uncovering the island's hidden secrets, looking to have an intriguing central mystery. So if you love the punching trees kind of survival game experience, this could be the next huge title. Speaking of anticipated titles, Mimesis is a 4-player co-op horror game with a twist, where in addition to you and your friends getting chased down by monsters while desperately trying to loot and extract, This adds not a traitor, but a monster known as the Mimesis with the ability to perfectly imitate human speech, going viral due to its demo and various streamers picking it up. You and 3 teammates are on board a battered tram as the world is besieged by a mysterious cursed rainfall, having to collect scrap to repair and maintain the train while dealing with these additional hazards. If I'm not wrong, there's some use of AI in this, where the game is taking voice samples from voice chat and cloning your voice to create that of the Mimesis, possibly being a good use of AI? Or maybe it's a ploy to steal your voice and to sell it to OpenAI or something, so maybe that's a concern, but looks like a relatively harmless game, right? One of the biggest games quietly chugging along in the background is Escape Simulator, essentially a video game version of escape rooms, which I think are still relatively popular in real life, but of course from the comfort of your own home and the ability to explore fantastical locations not bound by the laws of physics, releasing multiple paid DLC which seem to be doing well, with the sequel releasing this week. This expands on its predecessor with richer environments, deeper interactivity, and an advanced creation toolkit in which you're doing similar things of exploring and poking around fully furnished theme rooms such as a gothic castle, a stranded starship, or a cursed pirate hideout. Interact with nearly everything from furniture to switches, move objects, unlock secret compartments, and solve intricate chains of puzzles to progress. This can be done solo or in co-op with up to 8 players, which is a lot, with this looking to have long-tail support post-launch as well. The robust creation tool, dubbed Room Editor 2.0, allows you to build and share your own levels, possibly offering near infinite replayability as long as people keep making new levels for the game, looking absolutely gorgeous and should be a big hit. Speaking of big hit, this horror-tinged story-driven shooter looks absolutely amazing and is doing some interesting things with the camera, where in Silly Polly Beast, you play as not Power from Chainsaw Man, but Polly, a high school girl who finds herself entangled in a demonic pact and must survive a supernatural underworld to claim her freedom. Explore the fog-shrouded cityscapes and horrifying alternate realms with pure side-on combat, behind the back, and even isometric view, changing things up to provide variety. You can also use a skateboard, blast enemies with a magical revolver or a pump-action shotgun, use powerful forbidden spells, and looks absolutely stunning, being perfect for Halloween week. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.